right? So natural gas in the US, like a lot of other energy commodities, started out being very highly regulated, right? So this is sort of just a highlight of a bit of the regulatory history of natural gas. But for decades, the Natural Gas Act gave the Federal Power Commission, which is now the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, or FERC, the power to regulate wellhead prices, right? So the price at the well, okay? And the sort of beginning with the Natural Gas Policy Act in 1978, there was some transition to more deregulated pricing, right? And taking some of that price-setting power away from FERC. And the establishment of a continental, largely unregulated market for wholesale natural gas more or less culminated with, oops, wrong thing, I want the laser, with FERC Order 636, which was adopted in 1992, which did a lot of things, but basically the upshot is that it eliminated a lot of the price controls on natural gas that had existed, right, in the past several decades. Okay. So there's this very liquid, fairly competitive market for natural gas in the U.S. And most of the activity in the market takes place through futures contracts that are traded on the New York Mercantile Exchange, okay, or NYMEX. Okay. And the way that NYMEX contracts work is that the actual contract for natural gas that you would buy or sell on the NYMEX is extremely specific, right? So it specifies a quantity of gas to be delivered at a specific date to a very specific location, right? And that location is called the Henry Hub in southern Louisiana. Okay, so the Henry Hub is actually like a physical pipeline, right? So you could go and at least in concept you could visit the Henry Hub, or you could find it on Google Earth or something like that. But it's an actual physical pipeline, and it connects to a large number of other pipelines that that connect the producing region here in the Gulf, right, with the broader continental natural gas network. Okay, so when you buy or sell a futures contract for natural gas, right, you're basically buying or selling natural gas at this specific location, right? And then if you actually wanted to physically transport the gas to market, right, you would then have to arrange for transportation or transmission along one of these other pipelines. Okay. So because of the success of the NYMEX natural gas contract, the price at Henry Hub has sort of become what we call the benchmark price, or the marker price for natural gas in the U.S. Okay, and there are other market centers where natural gas is traded on a bilateral basis. So there's one up here in Oklahoma, right at Cushing. There's one there's another one in Texas. There's actually another one at the Houston Ship Channel. But if you want to know, if somebody were to ask you what the price of natural gas is, right, in the U.S., you would basically give them this Henry Hub price. Okay. And so the role of the Henry Hub price and of the NYMEX natural gas contract in the broader U.S. natural gas market is that it's kind of an index, right, for natural gas contracts, right, and things like that. And so If you want to know what the price of natural gas is at a specific location, okay, then the way that you would figure that out, for the most part, is you would take the Henry Hub price and you would add whatever the transportation cost is. Okay? And so price differentials between areas of the US basically represent the cost of gas transportation from Henry Hub. Okay? And so the role of the NYMEX contract, that's where the price is set at this one specific location, has really been to integrate a lot of local gas markets in the US, right? And so for a couple of decades at least, we really had an integrated national market, right? And really even a continental market for natural gas, okay, where things that happened, right, in the natural gas market that would drive price dynamics, so things like changes in the weather or changes in supply-demand balance or storage or things like that, right, those would be reflected in the Henry Hub price, right, and then would be reflected in natural gas prices at other locations in the U.S. Okay. And so historically, historically, local natural gas prices in the U.S. have been very, very highly correlated. An example of departure from this would be during California's energy crisis, right? During the summer of 2000, where natural gas prices within California went from being about $2 or $3 to million BTU to about $80 per million BTU. Meanwhile, the natural gas price in Washington state was about $3 or $4 per million BTU. Okay? And so there are these sort of short-term supply disruptions like this pipeline explosion that have interrupted this historical correlation. One more point about this is that I keep talking about a continental or a national market for natural gas. There is a commodity like crude oil really exists in a global market, right? Because it's easy to transport crude oil from one location to another, right? You could do it on ships or through pipelines, right, or however you want. With natural gas, there's a more limited capability for transoceanic natural gas shipments, except using liquefied natural gas or LNG. And because liquefied natural gas plays such a small role in natural gas supply in North America, to the extent that LNG is creating a more global market for natural gas as a commodity, North America is somewhat separate from that, right? And I'll get back to this point in a little bit. But because LNG does not play a big role in North American natural gas supply, things that happen in other parts of the world, like Russian supply disruptions and things like that, don't affect natural gas prices in North America the same way that they would, say, in the oil market. Okay, so we did have this highly integrated continental or national natural gas market. One of the things that we are starting to see as shale gas development picks up is that this integration and this correlation is starting to get disrupted a little bit, right? Because there is so much natural gas supply coming online, and demand or pipeline construction haven't really caught up yet. There's what we're seeing right now is at least a sort of this may be transient, we're not sure, but we are seeing something of a separation, or what you might call a balkanization of the North American natural gas market, And you can start to see that a little bit if you compare local prices in Pennsylvania and Wyoming. Okay, so the Pennsylvania price and the Wyoming price were fairly close for a long time, up until actually up until about the mid-2000s. And then not only have the prices started to separate more, okay, which in and of itself doesn't say anything, but they're not as closely correlated as they used to be. Okay? And so what we think is driving this is that in Wyoming there's been a lot of natural gas production, but there's not a lot of local demand. Okay? And there is not, and you don't have the same extent of pipeline network in Wyoming that you do in, say, Texas, to take the natural gas from Wyoming to other places. Okay? And so you're basically flooding the local Wyoming market with natural gas, and so you wind up with a problem that we call stranded gas. Okay? That there's not much of a local market, and there isn't, and until we get a bigger pipeline network, there isn't really anywhere for it to go. In Pennsylvania, we have not seen exactly the same thing as of yet. And part of this is because the development of the Marcellus is still kind of in the ramping up phase. But right now, the gas that's the natural gas that's produced, right, can be exported on pipelines to New York, for example, right, and that has kept prices in Pennsylvania a lot higher than the national average, right, for about the last couple of years. As the pace of supply in the Marcellus picks up, right, and as the construction of gas transmission pipelines lags increased supply a little bit, what we can sort of expect is that you may see other little pockets of stranded gas, right, in Pennsylvania or the Mid-Atlantic. I think it's unlikely that you'll see the same sort of magnitude impact as in Wyoming, right, where natural gas is almost free at this point, because of Pennsylvania's proximity to major East Coast consumption centers, right? But this just illustrates the type of regional price separation that we're seeing in the North American natural gas market that we basically have not seen for decades. Okay, so this is kind of this is more or less a picture of what the market looks like now. Okay. For the last 15 minutes or so before I take questions, I would like to talk a little bit about some factors that I think are going to drive the dynamics of these markets, right, over the next several years. Okay, so the U.S. Department of Energy, right, in its energy planning in its energy planning reports, right, in its market modeling, it projects a 6% increase in natural gas consumption by 2030. Okay, so this is the kind of this is the sort of DOE analysis, right? And so this is the analysis that a lot of DOE decision making is based on, and to some degree federal policy is based on. Okay. And this is where I'm now going to depart from the DOE line. I'm not sure that I believe this number all that much, right? For a couple of reasons. So if you look at the amount of natural gas that, or the amount of natural gas-fired electric generation capacity that is currently what we call in the queue. Okay, this means that it's planned and they're in the process of trying to obtain transmission interconnections, okay, for these natural gas plants. If you look at planned generation investments in the U.S., over 50% of it is natural gas.